Hello everyone and welcome to a special retro lunch. Today we've got a egg feta cheese and cucumber sandwich and a package in the mail. We've got a package from litnxt. They've taken a look at the Miyoo Flip. Now, as you may know from the channel, we love our flippy handhelds here on Retro Lunch. So let's take a look at a quick unboxing, see what we get in the package. Start off, like traditional Miyoo products, we get a nice case. Let's open this up. Memory card. This is the Surwish memory card, the custom operating system. Information packet. Charging cable. Screen protector. And let's take a look at the star of the show. Yep, good. I requested the black version. While I do think that the SNES version is appealing, I was curious to see the quality that people are describing on any other colorway, since this is a really interesting handheld with more and more custom firmware options coming out every single day.
The Miyoo Flip is powered by an RK3566. It has 1 GB of RAM and a 640 by 480 resolution screen.
So what we got here on the side is an SD card slot, power button. Bottom is the USB-C cord and headphone jack. We've got another SD card slot. I think this one is for the operating system and the other one is for the ROMs. Volume up and down button, shoulders, triggers, another USB-C here on the top, as well as video, HDMI video out. We have 2 control sticks recessed into the frame, so these are out of the way. Start and select. D-pad and buttons. I do appreciate that at least this tried to go for the Game Boy SP style of having some of the buttons be dark and some of the buttons be light, kind of mimicking a 2-button device. Let's see if it comes with any battery out of the box. Now keep in mind, right now, first boot does not have the Surwish card in. So let's take a look at the no SD card experience and double check which firmware version this ships with, since there was a firmware update. Device info, okay. It does look like this ships with the latest firmware, and that's good. So this is date 2025, 02 for February, and 28th. This is the latest version that we see available from the Miyoo website. Let's take a quick look device comparison-wise against the RG35xx. This is the device I have on hand. I don't currently have the 34xx, but if you want to consider upgrading from the 35xx to the Miyoo Flip, there are some advantages to this. Number one is that it is thinner, so not by much, but in a pocket test, I can tell you that there is a little bit less of a bulge on this. The corners on it are a little bit more rounded, so it is a little bit easier to get into the pocket. The screen is smaller, but it does help the screen to be smaller to make it more portable. It also makes it really good for Game Boy Advance, since this is a 3:2 aspect ratio. Besides that, they can tell you that the buttons, they're a little bit more firm. There's less travel to them on the Miyoo Flip. And the D-pad, you can see it is thinner, but it's not harder to push. You do get an advantage that this does, as an RK3566, this does have the power to run N64 games, and it will be a lot easier to run N64 games with an analog stick available. So let's take a quick look at what you get with litnxt and Surwish. We do have a branded SD card, which I've always felt is important. In this case, they sent me the 256 GB option. This is just going to help with reliability of the device. It also, in my opinion, helps with gifting, because sometimes when these devices come directly from China, they'll ship with unbranded SD cards. And look, you know what you're doing. We spend a lot of time on the channel working with custom operating systems, and we always recommend branded cards. But if you're sending this to somebody for them to purchase for themselves, sometimes it's just kind of nice to have a device which is ready to go. There is a nitpick that I do want to bring up, especially within the context of this being a device which you want to have already set up and ready for somebody else to buy, if you're not a tinkerer. Is that here on the Get Started instructions, it tells you to insert the TF card with installed games into the TF card slot. Now you'll notice this is the first Miyoo device, since this is an RK3566, that has 2 TF card slots, slot 1 and slot 2. Now, us who are retro handhelds enthusiasts may just know from other devices that it'll typically go in the left slot for the OS, But since it is not explicitly called out in the documentation that you put the card into TF card slot 1, that to me feels like a miss. You can see the Surwish OS, up here on the top left corner. Menu design does look very similar, so this may be a modification of the stock OS. I'm going to start by doing the very satisfying screen peel. Okay, that should help with some of the vibrancy and the colors. This actually does look very nice. If we go through, let's take a quick look at some of the games that are included. Unlike its competitor, at least there's a single games section on the device. You don't have an RA game versus game room section. That should make things easier, again, as a gift. Now, let's take a look at what else is going on the device. From here, oh, they've already pre-configured some collections. Again, this is handy for people who are buying the device from outside. It does look like they've included some of Nintendo and Sega favorites, as well as collections for shoot 'em ups. I have a recent list of the games that I've played recently. Favorites are not pre-configured, and press the select button to get to a search option to send Mario Brothers within the arcade. So it does look like this is context-aware search. Now, if you saw that, it said 15,544 games. That is a lot. Keep going through, looks like there are app options, so USB mass storage, connecting to the device and being able to do things yourself, adding your own boot logo. I love adding my own boot logo to devices, so I've got my own logo, might as well. File browser, FTP, just handy ways, OTA updates, which again, you can see from here, it does look like this is a derivative from Cosmix. It does look like it has the option for Portmaster. I'm going to connect this to Wi-Fi and boot that up next. Now let's take a quick look at Portmaster. Make sure that that loads and behaves as expected. Now let's go to manage ports. Okay, so this is something which I appreciate. Well, again, while I'm still not a fan of companies that preload indie games, at least they went through Portmaster, meaning that it's going to be significantly easier to manage, it's going to be significantly easier to add more ports without interfering with the ports that already exist. So I am grateful for that. Now, while we are here, let's take a look at this option to use Emulation Station. And there it is. That sure does look like Emulation Station. Let's see if we have the option to go back. Yep, there we go. Use my UI. So it is nice that it gives us the flexibility of either one. Now, best I can tell, it does look like the Miyoo UI or the Surwish UI does load faster, but I like Emulation Station, so I see benefits in both. One thing to note, and I'm not sure why, but within the Surwish Miyoo UI, PlayStation Portable was not showing. We did check the card, there were games available, and if I switch into Emulation Station, I do see it listed. So from here, let's test out some PSP. It does look like this, you can use the D-pad or the joystick to move the character. Yeah, let's exercise a little bit of this analog stick with Wave Race64. Alright, let's just try a game everybody knows and loves. Now let's take a look at some Sega Dreamcast. Now, let's do a comparison of this versus what is the stock operating system. As you can see here, it is a pretty basic experience. I was able to get some files online from the Miyoo website. If I go here into game, it shows systems for which I don't even have any games on. Let me go into Game Boy Advance. You can see that while the system is functional, it just feels very bare bones. I do not particularly care for these bezels. For a 3x2 system, it really shouldn't need that. And similarly, if I go here into PlayStation Portable, there is some benefits in having systems pre-configured, because by default, this looks like this is stretched and showing weird errors. Now, while Luminez may not actually be the worst game to have stretched, it is still preferred to have PSP in its native aspect ratio, even on this display. So overall, what are my thoughts on the Miyoo Flip? I like it. It is a lightweight device. It does feel like an upgrade over the 35xx SP. It is more easily pocketable. I do think that the Surwish OS does add some benefits with the scraper, the pre-configured systems. It does also have a well-curated list of games. It's also nice to have a system with a branded SD card, which is less likely to have faults. And so overall, I'm positive about this. I do think there are some misses here and there, some small gripes around the documentation, and a few things that were misconfigured. But overall, I think that this is a handy device. If you're interested, I do have an affiliate link in the description below, and let me know what you think. So that's stay retro, stay gaming, and stay awesome.